Hare Krishna. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And you can come inside if you like from there. No, all of you can. So you only can come inside, you're not able to see from here. You're writing and drawing some things. And then if you want to come in. Oh, okay. So, I given the title for this talk, One Mission, Many Moods. That is a broad topic. So I'll talk about broadly 4 things, but not necessarily go in this direction. I'll talk about, so this will be like a whiteboard I use for writing and drawing. So we'll talk about his relationship with Prabhupada. I'll talk about his personal nature and his personality, then his service, and then his service in terms of the various projects that he has done, the various things that he has done, and then his guidelines broadly for devotees and disciples. So before I go into this is what I'll be discussing, but let me start with some background about how my understanding of Maharaj and my relationship with Maharaj has evolved. I was introduced in 1996 to Krishna Bhakti in Pune, and we used to go at that time almost every second, third weekend to Mumbai whenever in Radha Temple Maharaj used to do classes. And the first class that I heard from Maharaj was where I asked him a question about science and spirituality. And Maharaj said that yes, he said Einstein was the greatest scientist, and he finally concluded that there must be something more. So what that something more is what Krishna consciousness tells us. Now, there was a very interesting way of looking at things, because till then, the way I had been introduced, or the way I had seen science and spirituality being presented is, and in science, this particular theory is wrong, this particular thing is atheistic, this particular thing is that. So, and then we have to reject this and take to spirituality. But the way Maharaj, in general, what struck me from that time, and that is in wherever it is, I have encountered that there can be some things which can be seen as contradictory, but Maharaj's view is to see them as much as possible as complementary, not contradictory. So there are of course differences and there are often contradictions, but his focus, he doesn't get into logical arguments, he doesn't get into technical contradictions. He tries to see essential principles, and that's how he complements things. So in those days, now of course our movement has changed quite a bit. In those days we had a discussion that should devotees celebrate birthdays, especially in the ashram. Should birthdays be celebrated, or in general, should birthdays be celebrated? And if birthdays are celebrated, should we have cakes? Should we have, there is a contemporary way of celebrating birthdays. So there were 2 devotees, 2 groups were formed in the ashram itself. One said, no, we should be following the tradition. And the other said, there is no such thing as cakes and cake cutting and all that in the tradition. And then other group said, no, but this is the way we can create a bonding among devotees. So then the issue went to Maharaj. And Maharaj said that the specific expression may not be traditional, but the underlying emotion of appreciation, that is actually the essence of the tradition. So, he did not take a side, you should do it or should not do it. Now, of course, it's become quite commonplace, we all do it most of the times. But the point is, from that time, it struck me that always he says, there is contradictory at the surface, but there is a complementary at the level of an underlying principle. And Maharaj always tries to go towards the underlying principle. So, at that time when Radheshyam Prabhu introduced me to, Radheshyam Prabhu was my Shiksha Guru, he introduced me to Maharaj, and I was, okay. So I was at that time planning to come to America for higher studies, and I had given the GRE, I had done quite well in GRE at that time. So then, on two separate occasions it happened. First time, he said, he's thinking of going to America. Radheshyam Prabhu told Maharaj. Maharaj said, if you want to, he says, if you want to go back to Godhead, stay in India. If you want to go to hell, go to America. Now I'll come back to that particular statement later. But it was, he's of course spoken in a lighter way. Afterwards, then I decided that I had joined the temple, and Radheshyam once again, so Maharaj had an opportunity to go to America, but he joined the temple. So Maharaj said, he had an opportunity to go to America for higher education. So Maharaj says, now you have taken the opportunity for the highest education. Raj Vidya Raj Guhyam. He quoted from 9.2 in the Bhagavad Gita. So I used to meet him occasionally and ask him questions in the class. But around 2004-2005, when Maharaj wrote the Journey Home, that's the time when my interactions with him started becoming more. By that time, I had written a few books and I had given those books to Maharaj. So when Maharaj sent me that book and the Journey Home, he had already written it. He gave me a copy and he said, "You go through it and tell me what you think about the book." So I went through it, and then Maharaj asked, I said, "Maharaj, the stories are wonderful, but what struck me the most was the tone of the book. In this book, you are not speaking like a acharya or a guru speaking to disciples. You are speaking in the mood of almost like a friend sharing with friends." So Maharaj said, "Yes." He said, Maharaj said, "I appreciate your appreciation." And he said that this is the tone that you need to reach out to a Western audience. India is also becoming more westernized. If you learn how to learn this tone, then you can also do a lot of outreach. So that is from that time I started trying to understand what it means to understand the Western mind basically. So then thereafter, Maharaj decided to write the second book, which came as Journey Within. At that time, it was called The Yoga of Love. That was the tentative name of the book. And Penguin was going to publish it. But then a lot of things happened. The Penguin editor retired from there. So they didn't take up the project. But at that time, Maharaj was in quite a bit of a deadline to complete the book. So he gave me the book. He sent me my email. And then I went through the email and went through it, and then I sent back some replies, some appreciations, some suggestions. Then I had come to Mumbai for a Sunday class. After that, I just came to greet Maharaj. Maharaj said, "Are you staying here for some time?" So Maharaj very rarely gives instructions. So his questions and suggestions, we need to see them as instructions. So, so I want to stay here for some time. And if you want, I can stay here all the time. Maharaj started laughing. No, you have to ask Radheshyam Prabhu. I said, I talked with him, so then I stayed on. Maharaj told me that you gave a lot of suggestions. Now, implementing those suggestions is your karma. So then many things I suggested we could reword this or add this or change this. Then Maharaj said, "Okay, you do all this, give the draft to me." So at that time, when I went over various things with Maharaj, at that time I got a lot of personal association. I got to see how Maharaj thinks. Now, of course, then through his speaking and through his writing, we get to understand how he thinks. But when specific points came up, that time I realized that his understanding of the purpose of the book and my understanding, the way from which I was writing the book, were significantly different. In the sense that So at one particular place, Maharaj had written a particular point about how the Lord accepts the service of a devotee. Is explained Bhakti. Then I suggested the story to Maharaj of Hanuman, where when he comes back after his adventurous exploits in Lanka, then the Lord embraces him. So the Maharaj said, okay, it's a good story, you can write it down. I wrote it here to Maharaj. And Maharaj said, okay. And then right in front of me, Maharaj started doing something. I'm wondering, I thought I had got all the details right. What is Maharaj doing? And then I was sitting and I was looking at other things on my computer, which were other changes were to be made. And Maharaj, about 10 minutes, so what do you think about this? And then I said that Maharaj had just transformed the story. And it was, I told Maharaj, it's like my story, the same story, when I had written it, it was like a report. And when you have written it, it's like, my story was almost like a report of a drama. And your story is the drama. So, that time, actually only recently, I remember this recently when I was in Eco Village. And here Maharaj was speaking to Western audiences. So, I realized that for me, when I tell stories, the stories are means to illustrate some philosophical points. But for Maharaj, stories are means to give people experiences. An experience of a different culture, an experience of bhakti, an experience that transports people. And he has the capacity to narrate stories beautifully. So he told me, bhakti is not about convincing people. It is about giving people an experience that by which they will convince themselves. So that was quite a. Now he may not have phrased it exactly like this, but that was what he said. Basically, that I used to always focus on logically. So this is right, this is right, this is right, and that's important in its own way. But his focus was that it would give people an experience of Krishna, an experience of bhakti, and that experience is what will primarily attract you. The logic is required, the reasoning is required, but the experience is what attracts. So, now, while I was interacting with Maharaj, I'll come back to a couple of incidents a little later on, but this led me to a question, and that's how the title comes up. So that I started feeling that the way I had read Prabhupada, the Prabhupada Lilamrita, Prabhupada's books, I started thinking that between Maharaj and Prabhupada, there seems to be such a difference especially in moods. The way we know Prabhupada was confrontational, Prabhupada is cutting, Prabhupada was quite liberal in using words like fools and rascals. So, then I was wondering when Maharaj seems to be so different. So then I was wondering, what is it that with these two personalities there is so much difference? So what is the overlap? How is it that Maharaj is attracted to Prabhupada so much? But then I talked with Maharaj also about this, not directly asking him, but Maharaj said, so because I saw Maharaj he seems to be repeatedly non-confrontational in his approach. So there's another example when Maharaj was talking about how people in his book is writing how people are exploring spirituality. And then I said, Maharaj, that there are spiritual seekers and there are spiritual shoppers. The people are shopping around. And I said, Maharaj, maybe we can add that. I thought I was quite clever. Like a rhyme of words, seekers and shoppers. And we should be spiritual seekers, not spiritual shoppers. Maharaj said, Chaitanya Charan, the main reason why most Western people will be reading my book is because they are spiritual shoppers. So, he said that kind of language, he said, it will simply alienate people. After they become committed, yes, they have to become seekers, but initially they will be shoppers. So, that whole point of what to speak when and what not to speak when, it was something which struck me. So then I started observing, so two things struck me. First is that, as I think the question was, that there seemed to be such a significant difference between Maharaj's mood and Prabhupada's mood. So what was the similarity? Then, two things. First of all, I've read Journey Home several times. And then, maybe it was one of my fifth or sixth reading when I read it, it struck me that Maharaj has nearly put one full chapter on the song Markine Bhagavad Dharma. Basically, when he met Prabhupada in Mumbai, in Cross Maidan, then he went to Vrindavan, and Vrindavan, we already had the basics of a center over there. Our devotees were there. And those devotees gave Maharaj the translation of the Markine Bhagavad Dharma. The Markine Bhagavad Dharma is the song that Srila Prabhupada composed as a prayer to Krishna while he was on the Jaladuta, the ship which brought him to America. And as an author, I am also author, so whenever I read a book, I don't read the book just as a reader, I read as an author. And then, if you see the entire book, each chapter has something dramatic about it. This incident happened over there, that incident happened over there, that incident happened over there. But in this particular chapter, there is very little drama. So, devoting an entire chapter for a particular theme is a significant investment for any author. Then Maharaj shares his thoughts about that song Markine Bhagavad Dharma. And he writes over there that here this old person, he's come to America, he's had heart attacks, and his prayer is not for recovery of his health. His prayer is not for his safety. His prayer is to be empowered to become an instrument of compassion. So, I felt that Prabhupada, that nachao Prabhu, nachao Srimati, that please make me dance, O Lord, make me dance. That Prabhupada is the Prabhupada that Maharaj's heart is attracted. So at the core, the parampara is not a link of heads. It's not like there's a chain, this chain gets a chain, like we make a long chain. There are small pieces which get interlocked. Parampara is not so much a link of heads as it is a bond of hearts. So, when you say link of heads means that they all think in the same way. Intellectual agreement. There is some level of intellectual agreement, no doubt. Parampara may be a link of heads, but it is much, much more a bond of hearts. That means the Guru's heart is filled with love for Krishna. And that inspires the disciple to also start loving Krishna. Now, based on the individual nature, each particular acharya, each particular person in this parampara will have their own particular way of presenting the message. They will have their own way of articulation. So confrontational, non-confrontational, these are just modes of approaching. These are modes of presenting. But the essence is to draw people toward Krishna. So this Prabhupada is calling out to Krishna, being utterly dependent, longing to be just made an instrument of Guru and Krishna. That is the Prabhupada that attracted Maharaj's heart. And in one of the Prabhupada Vyasapuja celebrations after Janmashtami, Maharaj gave an offering. And there are different times when there are There are different ways Maharaj speaks, but there are some themes which are consistent in his speech. So Maharaj does not talk too much about, say, in general in our movement, there have been three broad definitions of success. One is how many books have been distributed, how many temples have been built, and how many devotees have been made. And this is natural at one level. Prabhupada also emphasized numbers. That's, so if we consider the definition of success, everybody is governed, we are driven by certain definitions of success. So all of you are here in Canada, you have a particular definition of success. Maybe it's for economic development, it may be professional growth, whatever it is. We all generally are driven by some definition of success. Now of course, we can have multiple definitions of success. But generally for ISKCON, the definition were books, temples, devotees. And all three are undoubtedly important. But at the same time, when Prabhupada was asked, what pleases you the most? He said, if you love Krishna, that's what pleases me the most. So for Maharaj, in one of his offerings, he said that our community of devotees, this is the greatest offering to Srila Prabhupada. That all of us are coming together and we are glorifying Krishna. So Maharaj was telling me once, I'll come back to this particular theme of one mood and one mission, many moods a little later. But Maharaj said that in our first generation, it was like a revolving door. Many devotees came, many devotees left. So he said that what do we need to do to ensure that once a devotee comes to bhakti, they will practice bhakti lifelong. What are the likely challenges that they will face? How can those challenges be addressed? And what resources need to be created for addressing those challenges? So the Bhaktivedanta Hospital came through that. Devotees will have health issues. So Bhaktivedanta Hospital is a hospital where devotee doctors have come together and they have built a beautiful hospital. Similarly, there is a counselor system where senior devotees take care of younger devotees. Then there was in the Radha Gopinath community was the first to start the idea of a marriage board. That devotees have to get married. So what is the best way that can be arranged? So like then, now the school of course Prabhupada had said Gurukul, but schools, so gradually one by one, for the sense of community, various projects for the development of the community came up. So now this idea of confrontation, non-confrontation, which I said that. So Maharaj's mood, he is his own person. He's completely dedicated to Prabhupada and Krishna, but he's his own person. And at one time, sometimes he also, like every successful person in this world, wherever there is fame, there will be infamy. Where there will be glorification, there will be criticism. So sometimes he has been criticized, Prabhupada didn't start any hospitals. So why should we start any hospital? So Prabhupada did not. So often because I had that background of argument, of logic and logical argumentation and logical defense. So whenever these kind of criticisms would come, any kind of criticism, so they would come to Gaurang would send me to them to me. Then I would prepare some Shastric research and I'd prepare it and I'd present it to Maharaj and then we would share it with the community. So one of the things that came up is that Prabhupada was very confrontational, as I said. So there's one senior devotee, a senior disciple of Prabhupada, who very strongly criticized Maharaj. And he said that during Prabhupada's time, nobody would have dared to even consider the idea of publishing a book with the pictures of Mayavadis within them. And here, not only is a book published, but it's being distributed. He said that, where is the faithfulness to Prabhupada? So neither the leader, nor the guru, nor the disciples, does nobody have any Prabhupada compass. This is quite harsh language. So one of my godbrothers, he was very angry. He went to Maharaj. Is he envious? Why is he speaking like this to you? So Maharaj said, no, he's not envious. He is narrow-minded. So now there's a significant difference. Narrow-minded means that you have only a particular way of looking at things. Literally the word narrow-minded means that we think that reality has to be narrow enough to fit into our mind's conceptions. Broad-minded means we accept that reality is bigger than my mind's conceptions. So I have my conceptions. So Maharaj told me that the purpose of the journey home, he says, many of my god brothers have written beautiful books glorifying Srila Prabhupada. But most of them are written in such a way that only people who have already accepted Prabhupada will appreciate those books. And he said that my purpose in writing Journey Home was to make Prabhupada appreciated by those who have not yet accepted him. So from a material perspective, many of the gurus whom Maharaj met during his spiritual journey, they're more well known than Prabhupada, at least several of them. So the point is that Maharaj met all those gurus and yet he surrendered to Prabhupada. That means indirectly what he is saying is he found something more special in Prabhupada than any of those gurus. So it's not minimizing them. Basically there are two broad approaches to spirituality. So this itself is like a fundamental difference between the way spirituality is approached. One is that it is based on rejection of the material. And there is material life and there is spiritual life. So we could say this is material, this is spiritual. So we go from the material to the spiritual. At that time basically we reject the material. But the other is that it is progression from the material. That whatever we have learned in our material life, those values, we build on them. Whatever understandings we have got, we build on them. So in the material, there is tamas, there is rajas, there is sattva. And then beyond that is spiritual. So the way Maharaj has talked about his other spiritual leaders, he has not in his book appreciated any of their Mayavadi teachings. He has appreciated their sattvic teachings. For example, one guru told him about importance of sadhana, one guru told him the importance of satsang, one guru talked with him about the importance of studying shastra, of going to holy places, like that. So the teachings, so basically Maharaj is reporting his journey and what he learned from them. Now, did they teach other things? Maybe they did. But that's not what Maharaj is transmitting to others. So Maharaj said that more than 1/3 of the book is about Vrindavan and it is about Krishna. So it is more of a inclusive way of glorifying Prabhupada and Krishna. And that is why this book, The Journey Home, the tone and the mood of that book is such that we can give that book to anyone. At one level it's an adventure story. At another level it is a way in which, without disrespecting or disregarding anyone, the presentation of Krishna Bhakti and of Prabhupada is done. So Maharaj's mood overall is to non-confrontationally attract people towards Krishna. Now, at one level, if somebody has to practice spirituality, there is some level of confrontation between material and spiritual lives. No doubt. But the confrontation does not have to be highlighted. So there was one leading devotee in the Radha Gopinath congregation. He was a follower of a prominent spiritual leader in India. His whole family was followers. Right? And he used to come to the temple. So at that time, there was, in the newspapers, some accusation had come up against that particular guru. That he has done this, some kind of malpractice. So, normally there is always this push and pull. If somebody is going to some other organization, some other guru, our idea of preaching is, pull that person to Krishna. And pull that person to Krishna means criticize wherever they are going. So, when this particular thing came in the news, Maharaj called the senior brahmachari in the chopati and he told them that don't speak anything about this to him. So when he came there, he was also a little tensed. I talked with him also after. He was very tensed about it. But nobody talked anything about this. And he felt so relieved. And then many years, then eventually the accusations were proven to be false and the Guru was cleared. And he went on. Then he wanted to take initiation from Maharaj. And Maharaj told him that you go and take blessings from your Guru, from your family's Guru. So he was taken aback. He says, he is not in parampara and this and that. Maharaj said, no, he has guided your family. You take his blessings. So when he went to his Guru, he said that yes, the remaining family has been telling me how you are going to ISKCON. And he says, if you are inspired to take initiative over there, that you have come here to seek my blessings, that itself assures me that you are on the right path. So you have my blessings. So the idea is that we don't have to break away or reject everything from our past to come towards Krishna. Yes, there are things which do need to be rejected, but we don't have to overemphasize them. So this same point that when Srila Prabhupada, so if you look at Maharaj's life, this point which I am talking about, the mood of being inclusive, building up from where we are in the past, not rejecting the past. So if you look at Maharaj's own spiritual journey, many of you have probably read Journey Home, so I won't talk about that, but afterwards, you see, there are broadly 4 phases as of now. One was his New Vrindavan times. There, he was primarily a pujari. This was till 79, approximately started from 70 to 73. 71 he was introduced. In 70 to 73 he went to New Vrindavan. There he was just practically staying on top of the hill where the Vrindavan Nath temple was there. And there he was worshipping with full energy. He was not really much actively involved he was there as part of the community, but he was not in the leadership in the community because he was focused on his pujari worship. And then from 79 to around 87, now the exact dates will vary, but he was doing college outreach in America. So one of our god brothers in Dallas, he still has the bus in which Maharaj used to travel. So he would have this bus and he would go from college to college and do programs. And he had created quite an elaborate circle. So even the Columbus temple which we have, the place as well as the deities, Maharaj said, I had got those deities. And Maharaj said that now we're going to have a new Columbus temple. He says, I will drive the deities. Personally, I'll drive the deities to the new temple. He said, I drove them first and I'll drive them there. So he went place to place. Almost, he would go to one place, he would do cooking, and then he would, because at that time, the direct outreach was not possible in colleges. So he would just do cooking classes, and after the cooking, he would just be nice to people, not speak any philosophy at all. Because many of these colleges would not allow philosophy to be taught. Then they would want to do, and then Maharaj would call people outside or to his own van, and there he would talk with them. And there he would introduce Bhakti. It was a very punishing schedule. Maharaj had to do everything. When he was told to go from New Vrindavan, he was not given anything except this one broken van. No assistance. So Maharaj would again alone have to cook and then serve the food and lead the kirtan and then talk with people, cultivate them. And he would do this day after day. week after week, month after month. And it was almost as if this has already become quite successful. And just when all that success, generally when we start outreach, any project we start, initially we are alone and we have to do our work, a lot of the work ourselves. We have to do all the legwork ourselves. But once a team starts getting built, then the expansion becomes possible. But just when that was about to happen, Maharaj was told to go to India. And then not only go to India, he was asked to almost make his base in India. He had come there before, occasionally, but so then this was a completely different area of functioning. It's not just geographically different, but culturally also different. Because in the West, his college students, they're in a different place. So Maharaj told us once that when he came to India, the first thing he did, he said, I tried to get my hand on everything that I could about Prabhupada's interactions with Indians. Basically, with respect to Srila Prabhupada, among those who followed Srila Prabhupada, there are two broad categories. There were his disciples. Most of the disciples were full-time. In those days, practicing bhakti meant basically moving into the temple. And those were the disciples who would go from one part of the world to the other part of the world, just because Prabhupada told them to do that. Now when Prabhupada came to India, at that time, he made an incredibly large number of people into life members. Not many of these life members became initiated disciples. So I have always wondered why that is so. Why didn't they become initiated? Why were they not inspired? And what exactly was holding them back? So two main factors. When Prabhupada came back to India, the trump card that Prabhupada had. I was in New York, this word, don't use the word Trump. So basically, the key attraction he had was his Western devotees, or Prabhupada called as dancing white elephants. So now the people who came to him, these life members, they came more from cultural pride, or you could say cultural nationalism. Oh, these Western people had ruled us for so long. Now they are following our culture. They came because of that. They didn't come so much because of a spiritual search. So things had not changed so much. Before Prabhupada went to America also, 10 years before, not many Indians were following him. Because people were not interested in spiritual search. But now when Prabhupada had come back from America, and he had brought American disciples. And this is where we see the genius of Prabhupada's strategy. There had been many spiritual teachers who had, not many but quite a few, who had come from India to the West. And they had created a splash. Some of them had also got followers. But most of them presented more like philosophical spirituality, not so much cultural spirituality. That means the people whom they made into followers, Advaita Vedanta or whatever path, the yoga or whatever, they didn't necessarily change the way they dressed, they changed the way they lived, changed the way they ate food. But there was more of thought change, but not much lifestyle change. So Prabhupada was the first guru who came back with Western followers where the Western followers were actually had adopted Indian culture, Indian cuisine, Indian dress, Indian spirituality to us. And that was what attracted people. So, in one sense, Prabhupada's guru did not emphasize the dress so much. You may have seen pictures of Bhaktivedanta Thakur even going to Radha Kund wearing civil clothes. He would discourse over there in those clothes. But Prabhupada emphasized that's a part of the strategy that he had. And that attracted people. So the people came from the perspective of cultural nationalism. And that's why they were not they think, oh, our Indian culture is so great and Swamiji is an embodiment of Indian culture. Embodiment of the success of Indian culture, Indian spiritual culture. So for them, the Indian and the culture were more important than the spiritual. So now Prabhupada dovetailed that. So basically what happened is, in general, with respect to, so for them, life members, this was what was more important. Indian and culture, the spiritual, it is okay, it's not that important. So with respect to his disciples, Prabhupada gave them direct instructions. But with respect to the life members, Prabhupada basically gave them engagements. He didn't give them instructions so much. Because so another reason was that, so now why am I talking about this? I'm talking about how Maharaj said that when I came to India, we had to do service in India, build a community in India. So how are we going to do that? So he said, I started reading everything that Prabhupada had spoken or written in his, especially not just his lectures, but his one-to-one interactions, the letters or conversations, whatever he had. And he says Prabhupada's mood was more of engagement. So one reason the life members didn't become really disciples was that they came from a cultural pride perspective. The another was that these life members had previous spiritual affiliations. That now two of the life members who helped Srila Prabhupada in pioneering in key ways in building the Juhu temple. Both of them were already initiated and prominent disciples of well-known Mayavadi gurus in India. And I asked the same to both Giriraj Maharaj and Radhanath Maharaj. And they said that yes, these life members, they had the pictures of their gurus prominently in their homes. So I asked Giriraj Maharaj, did Prabhupada, when Prabhupada went to so many people's houses, did Prabhupada ever comment on what all was there in people's altars? Now often, if you go to a typical Hindu altar, it's like a museum. Any and every deity just keeps getting added. There are demigods and there are semi-gods. What is a semi-god? Yes. Say me God. So there's all of these. An American devotee showed me a cartoon. This American is asking an Indian, so why do you people worship so many gods? So the Indian replies with ignorant wisdom. The Indian replies, we like to have backups. So the point is that these people, most of these gurus, most of these followers of Srila Prabhupada, the life members, they had their previous spiritual affiliation. So I had asked Giriraj Maharaj, did Prabhupada ever comment on what was there in people's altar? So I said, I can't remember a single instance of Prabhupada commenting about that. Now our idea is, Prabhupada, often the way we hear about Prabhupada is, as soon as Prabhupada would hear a word Mayavadi, it would smash. But it's not like that. Prabhupada came to establish the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It is not the International Society for smashing Mayavad. Isn't it? And yes, the impersonal tradition is also an important tradition. It is in the Upanishads. It is a part of the Indian tradition. Now, there are problems with the impersonal interpretation, no doubt. But the priority of the purpose is clear. Prabhupada came to establish Krishna consciousness. So Maharaj told me that when one of these life members was about to depart, he said, I went to meet him, to see him. And he said he was very sick and emaciated. But as soon as he saw me, he started glorifying Prabhupada. He says, what wonders Swamiji has done. And Maharaj said, I was thinking at that time, when this person is going to depart from the world, what is Krishna going to see? Is Krishna going to see that he was initiated by a Mayavadi Guru? Or is Krishna going to see that his heart is filled with so much appreciation and love for Krishna's pure devotion of Prabhupada? So Maharaj said, in my humble opinion, Krishna is bhavagrahi. So this capacity that Prabhupada, was he confrontational? Was Prabhupada confrontational? He was. But was he always confrontational? No. There are many times when Prabhupada was, we saw, okay, how can this person be engaged from where they are? And if a person is already committed to a particular spiritual teacher, spiritual path, then it's very unlikely that they're going to change that. But just because they're committed to that particular path, doesn't mean that they have no appreciation for Krishna, doesn't mean that they have no desire to serve Krishna. So different people need to be engaged at different levels. So that expertise is what was the signature of Maharaj. That, how, wherever people are, make them feel valued, make them feel comfortable over there, and take them towards Krishna. So, this particular mood of Maharaj is where, that's why I said, one mission is to get everyone to Krishna consciousness. But the mood is that, okay, there's where people are, let's build it up forward from there. From there onwards, take them toward Krishna. So recently, I think the Ambanis inaugurated a cultural exhibition or something in Mumbai, big cultural exhibit. So Radhanath Maharaj and Gaur Gopal Prabhu were invited over there. So before the inauguration itself, Kokila, when she was taking Maharaj and Gaur Gopal Prabhu, showing them around various things. So she speaks Hindi, so Gaur Gopal was translating for Maharaj. So she said, they're showing various things and how it has been made, how it is made. She said, tell Swamiji ko bolo, ye chandelier 10 crore ka hai. Maharaj is looking at Gaur Gopal Prabhu, he started translating, he started describing, this is like this, this is like this. And then Gaur Gopal Prabhu was telling us, he said, I think it is also mundane, why talk about this? But Maharaj was hearing very attentively. And then finally she said, ये पूरा इंडिया में बना है, कुछ भी चीज कहीं से नहीं आया है, कुछ भी चीज अमेरिका से नहीं आया है, everything made in India. Now Gaur Gopal was a little hesitating. He said, Maharaj is from America. So how do I tell? So Maharaj is waiting. I said, translate. So then Gaur Gopal to translate it. And then Maharaj heard. And Maharaj said, tell her, I am also made in India. Now Gaur Gopal was thinking, oh, what does that mean? I was thinking. So Maharaj said that all the wisdom and the spiritual inspiration that has made me who I am, I have got that from the saints of India. The culture that I have learned, the love that I have got is from the people of India. That is what has made me who I am. So I am also made in India. And then he told it to her. I told her and she was so happy. She started clapping like you were clapping. And she said, Maharaj, आप यहीं पे रहो अभी. यहाँ पे इंडिया को आपकी बहुत जरूरत है. Our young people today, they are not appreciating spirituality. You stay here and you teach young people. So again, the same point, you say, no, oh, India, America, this is all mundane. How much cost this is, that is mundane, this is mundane. But rather, so whatever is presented before Maharaj, instead of seeing how Krishna is absent within it and that's why it's mundane, Maharaj's mood is to see how it can point toward Krishna. So that is his consistent expertise. So there are many materially good things in the world. And we can see how they are bereft of Krishna, and we can condemn them. Like Prabhupada would say that everything without Krishna is a zero. When we add Krishna, it becomes one. So we can either emphasize that this is a zero, or we can show how it can actually point towards the one, isn't it? Because it is pointing toward Krishna. So how to do that, how these things can be used to point toward Krishna, that is the expertise of Maharaj. That is first of all the mood of Maharaj and also his expertise. And because of that, what happens? He doesn't alienate people much. He attracts a lot of people, and different people may be attracted to different degrees of commitment. And that's okay, not even during Prabhupada's time, not everyone became, as I said, the life members never became full-time devotees. But if you see now, going back to this point, that there were full-time devotees who had moved into the temple during Prabhupada's time, they are life members. Now if you consider today, most of our movement is in between, where we have what we call as congregation devotees. Now congregation devotees are much more serious and committed than the life members. But at the same time, they are not full-time devotees. They have their lives, they have their families, they have their careers, they have their social lives. So, in one sense, this demographic was actually not there during Prabhupada's times. So, how to train and cultivate this demographic? This is almost like a uncharted territory for our movement. And what I earlier talked about social development, that it is for this demographic, which is the majority of our movement, we need to provide more and more resources. So when Maharaj started his, so Maharaj came to India, so he said with the congregation, his mood was mostly to engage them in various services. Not give instructions so much as give engagement. He gives instructions occasionally, but more often than not, it's give engagement. So then, when Maharaj came to Chowpatty, and then around 93-94, he got full authority over Chowpatty. Otherwise, he was a representative of the previous leader over there. So then Maharaj shifted the focus. And what was it? See, in the past, now that I have been coming to America for 10 years, I have talked with many Prabhupada disciples who were full-time devotees in Prabhupada's time. Many of them were brahmacharis. And now they are grahasthas, they are situated doing various things. Some of them in academia, some of them are in various other fields. So I asked them at that time that, what was it that, why did you feel the need to change from the ashram? So, generally speaking, the idea of, at least the way we grow up, if some brahmachari changes the ashram, is not considered a good thing. And so generally we might think that it's because that person was sexually attracted or something like that. But almost everybody I talk with, they said that the main reason we changed the ashram was because we saw no pathway for growth for ourselves. No pathway for growth in our service. Like you're doing book distribution, and that's what you do day after day, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. And nothing wrong in book distribution. It's wonderful if somebody can do it. But not everybody can do it. So, basically the way it was, the brahmacharis in the temple, brahmacharis or brahmacharinis, it just worked out, not that Prabhupada wanted it like that, but it just worked out that they were treated just like free labor for the temple. But Maharaj said, no. He says, brahmacharis should become exemplary sadhus. And that means two things. He said, brahmacharis will not be involved in fundraising. And second is, right now, brahmacharis will focus more on studying Shastra, studying books than distributing books. So this was a radical change at those times. If you're staying in the temple, what are you doing if you're not going and raising funds? But Maharaj said that if somebody's renounced the world, after they renounced the world, to get them to get involved with money, it is not the best thing to do. It may be circumstantially required. So Maharaj gave the responsibility for the temple management, especially the financial aspect, to the Grihasthas. And that's when Maharaj would practically take classes every day. And especially take Chaitanya Charitamrita classes, where Chaitanya Charitamrita talks a lot about Vaishnava etiquette, how to behave, how to interact. And now if you see, now of course, so this Maharaj started in 1994, 95 onwards, now 25, 30 years down the line, we have many wonderful second generation preachers in our movement. But most of the leading preachers are from Maharaj disciples. Now this is not to say that other gurus are not attracted, but it is that Maharaj invested. And others have also followed. The focus on the brahmacharis training the brahmacharis to become Shastra teachers, not just book distributors or fundraisers. So that was where it's a different definition of success. Because from that, if you keep that definition of success, okay, you're spending hours studying Shastra, how many devotees are being made? Well, devotees are made, but they'll be made gradually. The devotees will be made will be also for better quality. More thoughtful, analytical, educated people will come. So that was also his vision. And then around 2004-2005, so I'll make two or three more points and then stop. So that's when, see, by that time Maharaj he has built a huge community in India, and that community is growing already. So he could have stayed in India and he could have enormously expanded Indian outreach. Maharaj told me that if I spend the same amount of time in New York, in London and in Mumbai, since the devotees can organize some programs for me in New York, they can organize bigger programs in London, and they can organize the biggest programs for me in Mumbai. But he said, Prabhupada said that New York is the most important city in the world. So he said we should be doing something in New York. So that's how he started his focus on Western outreach. It's almost like there's a remarkable parallel that Prabhupada in his 60s came from India to the West for Western outreach. Maharaj also in his 60s started coming towards the West to rejuvenate Western outreach. Now, Western outreach itself is a big subject, but two quick points about it. See, Prabhupada wanted an international society. It is not just an Indian society that is have international branches. So, so how do we do that? So he said that basically, I've had many discussions about this with him. So he says our temples are geared in such a way that they can easily attract Indians now. And of course the Indians we are attracting in America and the Western world, Indians who come out of India are very professionally successful and competent. That's also glorious. But the Western people are not being attracted. And the way temples are structured, it's very difficult. For people, when they come to a temple, the bhakti becomes very expensive for them. Not financially expensive, culturally and conceptually expensive. It is that the amount of cultural adjustment that they have to do. I was talking with one Western devotee. He said, first time he came to the temple, he said his girlfriend invited him to come to the temple. They came in the same car. But when I came inside the temple, they were supposed to sit in different places. So I said, I just couldn't understand what was going on. So he told me that, afterwards he said, after the program got over, there were the kirtans. And then the aarti was blown. And then everybody offered obeisances. So he said, I asked my girlfriend that, when you blow that conch, why does everyone kiss the floor? So, it's culturally, not many people will be so interested in Krishna that they are ready to pay that cost. Okay, everything is unfamiliar. During Prabhupada's time, there was a sense of adventure that was there. That Prabhupada had that charisma by which he could attract people. But it's very difficult. Conceptually also, in the West, if somebody has some challenges in their life, if they lose a loved one, if they get cancer, if they're having depression, they're much more likely to go to a church, they're much more likely to go to a temple or to a religious center of their own birthplace rather than come to a Krishna temple. So it requires much more effort to actually, for them to come toward Krishna. And so for us to get them to come to Krishna, we need to try to decrease that effort as much as possible. So it is going to be expensive, but are there ways in which we can decrease that expense? So that is where so Maharaj's Journey Home book became the starting point, and from there the Journey Home as a draw in the Bhakti Center in New York and the Govardhan Eco Village in India. So these three have made a very powerful combination by which lots and lots of people are getting interested and are becoming very appreciative of Krishna consciousness. The kind of people who would never even consider Krishna consciousness, they are now appreciating it and practicing it in their own ways. So when Gaur Gopal Prabhu started doing self-help kind of outreach, and so initially there was quite a bit of criticism. He's not talking about Krishna. So I talked with Gaur Gopal Prabhu, I talked with Maharaj also about it. But what basically Maharaj said is that ultimately we need to provide opportunities for people to associate with devotees in non-preachy settings. So there are a certain number of people who will come in preaching settings, who will come and hear classes about spirituality. But there are many who will not come there. So Gaur Gopal was telling me, for me, all these self-help talks, they are actually tools by which I connect with people. So many of the elite people of Mumbai, including people from Bollywood and others, they are getting connected, and then many of them come to the Eco Village. I was once giving a Bhagavatam class in the Eco Village, and normally in our temples, Prabhu sit on one side, Mataji sit on the other side. So one Mataji, she came, she sat right in front, and she was hearing the class. And then I looked at her, I thought that she looks familiar. I wonder whether I had seen her, I know. And then the guard came in, and the guard was about to tell her, go and sit there. There was another senior devotee in the class, he said, don't tell her anything. And then after that, the class got over, and then the senior devotee, the counselor over there, he introduced, he brought that Mataji, and he says, you may not know her, she is a Bollywood star, so she is Juhi Chawla. So he says she comes almost every once in 2-3 weeks, she comes to the Eco Village. Just nonchalantly she is there. She's attending class. So like that, there are many elite people, they would not come to a temple, but they come to the Eco Village. There are so many things they can explore over there. So the idea is, we may want to build relationships with people. And we want to give opportunities for people to have those relationships built. So even the yoga outreach. Yoga basically, for us, yoga is a part of our tradition. At the same time, when people who are interested in yoga, they associate with devotees. Then through the yoga, they learn about Krishna. They associate with devotees, and then devotees actually speak about Krishna. So it's not that we don't give them yoga. They want yoga, we give them yoga. So the Eco Village vision is provide as many opportunities as possible for people, especially sattvic people, to associate with devotees. So in the Eco Village is a fantastic project. Basically, there are 4 different things over there. There is just the retreat experience, coming close to nature, and people, especially in cities, love to be there. And it's almost like I think something is from 60-70 countries, the ambassadors from there have come to the Eco Village. And for many of these ambassadors, when they bring their family and relatives to India, come visit, the Eco Village is one of the favorite destinations for them to get those people also. So it's become a huge place for attracting people. Now the UPSC, MPSC, those officers, when they have their training centers, training sessions, training retreats, they come to the Eco Village. So these are very influential people, and during that time when they come, they ask our devotees to give a talk. They come around and see the temple and they see various things. So the retreat aspect is itself beautiful. Along with that, there is a whole eco-friendly aspect, where how everything is done in a way which is completely very, very harmonious with the ecology, and it draws from our spirituality. So that attracts a lot of people. See, Krishna himself says, Manushanam sahasreshu kashiditi siddhaye. That very few people will be interested in Krishna directly. Now, does that mean only that those people will come to Bhakti? Well, we need to create more pathways. So there are people who are interested in rural development. So around the eco-village, there is a huge amount of rural development that is happening. That means there is women's empowerment, where women are trained in various skills by which they can take care of their families. There is education of children that's happening. There are hospitals over there to take care of the poor people. Then apart from that, there is the replica of Vrindavan. And that becomes more like a cultural delight. Explore it. So that way, basically, the cultural aspect, the retreat aspect, the ecological aspect, the rural development aspect, and the big aspect is the yoga aspect. So all these are ways for people who are not interested in Krishna to get an experience of Krishna. Normally, if you come to a temple, okay, you take out the darshan of deities, what else there is to do after that? You do that and leave. But there are so many things to do, and they are doing this with devotees. They are getting to know devotees. So this is the visionary expertise over here. Give people stepping stones by which they can come towards Krishna. So that was this visionary project, and now I could speak a lot more about Western outreach, but the key point here is that same mood of inclusiveness. That is here, see, that was in his vision of Prabhupada and his service to Prabhupada. That's what is seen over here. So the last point I'll talk about is now how he engages devotees. One is attracting new people, but how does he engage devotees? So there's some devotees here in North America who were doing a lot of Western outreach, but they were not able to get along with the temple. So when I had gone to that temple, I know those devotees also, I know that temple, I know the temple leaders also, I know those devotees also. So the temple leader had a lot of concerns and complaints about those devotees. So when I told Maharaj about it, Maharaj said that, yeah, I know the temple leaders, I know those devotees also. They are doing wonderful service. He said if Prabhupada had been there, Prabhupada would have told them start your own temple and made them temple presidents. He said in our movement, we have many empowered devotees, but we don't have enough empowered leaders to engage empowered devotees. What that means is that empowered devotees means they have talent, they have zeal, they have creativity, they want to do things. But empowered leaders means they need to give people the space. That okay, empowered leaders, if they have a particular vision, they will get it done and they will find people who will do it. But what about those who do not necessarily agree with that vision? What about them? No, they need to be given that space. So when there's a concern in India, a lot of conversion is happening, a lot of this concern for the protection of dharma is there. So some people said, oh, this is all mundane, Prabhupada didn't want us to do it. So Maharaj envisioned this. He said that we can have like Triveni Sangam is there. So Ganga, Jamuna and Saraswati. So Jamuna is what nourishes devotion. Saraswati is what provides education. And Ganga is what provides nutrition. So he said that we can, in Prabhupada's lotus feet, in Krishna's lotus feet, we can have the Sangam of all these three things. So those devotees feel more zeal for doing that kind of thing, where they would like to do more of providing education to poor people, or they want to offer more humanitarian support. There are people who are starving, and he says that can be done. That can be done within the broad framework of Bhakti. So there are many places where devotees are I met devotees who were close to Maharaj at one time. They were working in the project, but now they are working in different places. So when they asked Maharaj that how should we, what are your instructions for me? At least 3 devotees that told me these things. The Maharaj says, be Krishna conscious, be happy, and work with the local devotees. And the idea is that it's interesting, working with the local devotees is important, but that's the second or third instruction. Each one of us has to take responsibility to be Krishna conscious. And we want to be Krishna conscious in a way that is satisfying for us, that is joyful for us. And then we work with the local devotees. So that pleases Maharaj very much. Now, it is not that Maharaj wants us to subordinate our individuality and just do whatever anyone tells us to do. It's just that Maharaj does not like conflicts. He says that he is a very non-confrontational person, and he wants that we also should, as much as possible, avoid conflicts. Some devotees can get along with some devotees can't. But he told me that even if we can't get along with someone, don't spoil your relationship with them. You can keep some distance if required, but don't spoil your relationship with them. So, the way, when you talk about cooperate, it is also another meaning is cooperate. So that means I operate here, you operate there. So we can keep a distance. It's not that you have to be forced to work with someone we can't work with. But if we keep the higher purpose in mind, our higher purpose is to serve Krishna, to serve Srila Prabhupada, then even there are some differences, there can be some space, but the same commonality of purpose can be there. So since I started doing Western outreach in about 2014, since then I have been coming every year. So since that time I have got more time of Maharaj every year. Almost after every trip I meet Maharaj and talk with him and give him some report of what I am doing. So just before the pandemic I told Maharaj that many devotees tell me that my classes are too intellectual. And so one devotee told me that आपका क्लास सुनना मतलब दिमाग का वर्कआउट होता है. It's a workout for the brain. Other devotee said, आपका क्लास सुनता है तो दिमाग से धुआं निकलता है. So I did use those phrases, but I said, Maharaj, I'm not deliberately intellectual. That's just the way I think. It's difficult for me to change myself. So Maharaj said, you don't have to change yourself. He said that if Gaur Gopal Prabhu tries to be humorous to be intellectual like you, it won't work. If you try to be humorous like Gaur Gopal Prabhu, it won't work. He said, as far as I am concerned, I am neither intellectual like you nor humorous like Gaur Gopal Prabhu. So I said, Maharaj, whatever abilities we have, it is by your mercy. But Maharaj was grave. He said, but Krishna has gifted me with deep concern for people. And with that concern in my heart, whatever I speak, it seems to inspire people. So he says, you don't have to change yourself, but increase your concern for your audience. So I wondered what that meant practically. It sounded very nice. Increase your concern for people. So then I did some introspection, started thinking. So then I reheard some of my own classes, which I consider my best classes. In 2014, 2015, I just started my international outreach. And then when I was hearing those classes, it struck me that although they are my classes, I have to pay 100% attention to understand what I'm saying. So it's not that the broad points I know, many of them, some of them I have forgotten also, but if I'm giving this example, how is this example connected with this point? Or what is going on? How are things flowing? So I said, if I have to pay 100% attention, then I'm really demanding too much from my audience. So that's when I started thinking, what should I do? So then in the pandemic, I started making PowerPoint for every single class that I was giving. It took a lot of effort, but then I realized that this PowerPoint, the problem was that I have a structure broadly, but within the structure, like I'm spontaneous in what I speak. So the PowerPoints are very restrictive. And so that's how, I would say, by Maharaj's mercy that I discovered this whole idea of writing on a tablet. So where I can write and draw and illustrate and explain. So by that, I have the visual aid, but I also have the flexibility for myself. So when I told this to several other devotees, the key point that devotees carry home is we don't have to change ourselves, but whatever service we are doing, how can we increase our concern for others? So that is something, our core nature we can't change. But whoever we are interacting with, if they are finding something about us difficult, then if we increase our concern, we can find ways in which we can build those bridges, in which we can make things easier, make things smoother. And Maharaj's whole life is like that. Maharaj could himself be very happy chanting 64 rounds and doing kirtans and immersing himself in Shastra. But Maharaj has created all these structures and systems, and he's done all these projects by which he can make Bhakti accessible for others, for so many people. And the last point I'll make is that, so I was talking about with respect to his training his disciples, his focus is that, in my small understanding, that he wants each one of us to serve Krishna in our own way. I asked once that, is there any instruction for me? So actually what happened was that I often spent a good amount of time with Giriraj Maharaj. I edited some books for him. So Giriraj Maharaj is also a person who gives a lot of time. So when I was spending time with him, I told him about my meeting with Radhanath Maharaj. So he said that, the second time you told me about your meeting with Maharaj, with Radhanath Maharaj, he says, it's striking to me that everything that Maharaj tells you is a suggestion. It's not an instruction. So I said, Maharaj, what do you mean? So he says, did Maharaj give you any did your Guru Maharaj give you any instruction at all? I said, no. Then I asked one of my senior god brothers about this. So you can see the different individual moods and how they can be accommodated. So I asked 3 god brothers. One of them said, that's because you're not surrendered. The other god brother, he said, Maharaj, if you are involved directly in Maharaj's projects, then Maharaj gives instructions. So if you are working in the eco village, if you are working in the Bhakti center, then Maharaj has a particular vision of how things are to be done. So there Maharaj will give instructions, but otherwise Maharaj does not generally give instructions. The third senior god brother I asked, he said that, see, Maharaj does not want devotees to feel bound by those instructions. That everybody's situation changes. If he gives one instruction at a particular time, and then after that the situation changes, then what will happen over there? And the devotee will feel as if I am betraying my spiritual master's instruction. So Maharaj's mood is that he gives the principles of Bhakti. Now the principles of Bhakti used through his classes is each one of us can take responsibility to find how we can serve Krishna. There was one young couple, they met Maharaj and they said, Maharaj, we have decided we won't be having any children. Please bless us. So Maharaj said, whenever you decide to have children, you have my blessings. So the overall point is that Maharaj, it's not that it has to be some mystery. what can I do to please Maharaj? The Maharaj's instructions are there in his books, in his classes, and we hear them, we understand them to whatever capacity we can, and we apply them in our lives. It's not that there is some missing instruction somewhere which we will get one day and our life will be transformed. It's not like that. And see, in this whole session, I've talked about some of my interactions with Maharaj. I have had more than a dozen interactions, but I didn't talk much about them. And the primary reason for that is, if we talk too much, among Maharaj disciples, I am not a very senior disciple. There are many devotees who are much more senior to me. But when we talk too much about personal interactions with Maharaj, quite often that creates a scarcity mentality among disciples. Oh, these devotees, they got so much association of Maharaj. I don't get any association of Maharaj. And that scarcity mentality is not a very healthy mentality. It is, in Bhakti, we need an abundance mentality. So, yes, those who have had personal association of Maharaj, yes, they are blessed. They are special, they are blessed. However, it is they have found their way to serve Krishna. Just as we have to find our way to serve Krishna. So if we just sincerely hear Maharaj's instructions as we find them relevant from his classes and try to act in a mood of service, so Krishna will guide us to whatever services are best for us. And by that we can make our offerings to Krishna. It is not that Maharaj has to personally know, I have done this service and therefore Maharaj is pleased. The Guru is also a person, and the Guru is also a principle, a tattva. So if we are internalizing the instructions and following them in our lives, then we will be growing in our bhakti. We will be pleasing Maharaj, we will be pleasing Prabhupada, and we will be pleasing Krishna, and we will be growing closer and closer to all of them through our services and our daily practice of bhakti. So I'll summarize what I discussed. Broadly, the topic was about one mission, many moods. So one mission is the mission of Krishna, the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and within that there are many moods. So broadly I talked about four things. I talked about Maharaj's relationship with Prabhupada. So that he is quite, at one level he seems to be quite different. So Maharaj is non-confrontational, but Prabhupada was not always confrontational. The non-confrontational Prabhupada we also see in his dealing with his life members in various other places. The point was not confrontation, non-confrontation. The point is growth in devotion. So the Prabhupada in Jaladuta offering prayers, that is the Prabhupada that Maharaj is connected with the most. Then in terms of his service, let's put it in terms of his own nature and service are related. His own nature is that he sees the material not as lacking in the spiritual, but as pointing towards the spiritual, progressing towards the spiritual. So the mood is of inclusion. We have many examples of this. That how we don't have to reject the past. So the gurus from whom he had learned in the past, the guru of his disciple from whom Maharaj had taken blessings. Then about various areas, about say Indian, I am also made in India. So many examples like that. The point is that we see the material as pointing towards the spiritual. That is his very nature. It is see the good and build on the good to take it towards Krishna. Then in terms of his service, we discussed about, especially in terms of the congregation, that create social initiatives that can help them practice bhakti lifelong. And in the brahmacharis, train as teachers. So these are basically, you could say, more nuanced definitions of success. Previously the definitions of success were that distribute books, build temples and make devotees. Now in one sense, all these also, Radha Gopal Temple is among the leaders in book distribution. It is there happening now, but that was not initially the priority. So nuanced definition of success. And then lastly discussed about his guidelines to disciples. So I talked about like be Krishna conscious, be happy, be cooperative. That is the broad mood. Cooperative means not that we have to suffocate, but we need to create our own space, but don't spoil the relationship with devotees. Then the other point I mentioned is we can't change our nature, but we can increase our concern for others in whatever service we are doing. If we just focus on that, then whatever changes are possible, we can make those changes without it being too strenuous for ourselves. And the last part was that it's not that there is some missing instruction that we need to get by which we will be specifically guided to serve Krishna. It's that, He has given us broad principles, and we apply the broad principles in our lives, then we will find how best we can serve Krishna in whatever situation we are in. And in that way, the Guru is not just a person, the Guru is a principle. And Krishna and Guru will be pleased if we apply those principles in our lives and continue serving. So, although we may not have specific instructions, we may not have personal association, but still we can have an abundance mentality. Because Maharaj does make himself available through his classes, where he gives not only gives Krishna Katha, but he also gives us guidelines for living, principles for applying in our lives. And in that way, we all can move closer to him and to Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Do we have time for questions?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can take few.
Let's go.
That was fantastic talk. Koji, my question is, stop.
Yeah. Can you have some water? What are you doing? You can ask. No, you can ask the question. Where is it?
So, Koji, situationally speaking, in Canada, naturally we don't have direct association of Guru Maharaj, and not that everybody has the facility to go down to the US, go down to New York, Detroit, etc. and access him, right? So we are very driven by his mood and the 4.3 of the broader principles, hear the lectures and kind of follow. So with that as a context, my question is that how do we maintain the balance between making sure that Maharaj's mood is maintained and remains as a guiding torch, versus allowing or facilitating the newer devotees who are coming in, as well as the existing devotees, to actually experience that journey of their Krishna consciousness by themselves? How do we find the balance? Is it that we leave the onus to the individuals, but then we do run into multiple situations of whimsical behaviors and then run a risk of potentially, not being able to serve those devotees, versus does that onus lie with the leaders, or obviously combination of the two? So can you please?
I think this lot will depend on both the nature of the leader and the nature of the follower, the devotee coming. There is no one principle that I see. The way Maharaj deals with me. When I ask one question, same question if I ask, Radhesham Prabhu asks, or Shaman Prabhu or Gauram Prabhu asks, Maharaj will answer differently, because Maharaj knows each one of us and he guides us accordingly. So I don't think there has to be a one answer over here. In general, I have seen that Maharaj encourages people to take responsibility to decide the boundaries within which they should be functioning, rather than somebody else telling boundaries. He encourages individuals to take the responsibility for that. So for example, Maharaj himself, whenever he is there in the temple, generally he attends the morning program, if his health permits. So now in the Brahmacharya ashram, there are some devotees who, either by their health issues or even as they grow older, they need their space. So there was some issue that, what do we do if brahmacharis don't attend the morning program? So Maharaj said, we could have a separate ashram for those who don't attend morning program. So we can facilitate them. He said that if we want, that we can, if they feel, it's too crowded, and as people grow older, people need their space. He said, we could have a separate flat, a small flat near the temple, where they can stay. The temple can provide them some assistance, and from there they can, if they still want to be brahmacharis, they can be brahmacharis and they can continue their service. So the point I'm making is, I'm giving an example from brahmachari ashram, but the point is that if somebody needs a certain level of autonomy, that need for autonomy should not take them away from Krishna. Or we should not present Krishna Bhakti in such a way that they feel that to practice Krishna Bhakti I have to give up my autonomy. Now of course there are some non-negotiables in Krishna consciousness, no doubt. If somebody says, I'll stay in the temple, I'll eat meat, that's obviously not going to work. But beyond that, there is negotiables. So when I came to America, I was in Gainesville, and Gainesville we have Krishna House. So after that, Kalkand Prabhu is the leader over there. So he's done a lot of good outreach in the West. I think you have in Canada, in Toronto also we have now expansion of Krishna House. So when so I gave some classes over there. After that he said, Chaitanya Charan, you will be quite successful in Western outreach. I said, thank you Prabhu. Can you tell me why? So I thought he will say your classes are analytical or your vocabulary is you understand contemporary. He said that you are not uncomfortable around women. I had come from the ashram. So I said, Prabhu, is that a compliment or a criticism?
Subtle instruction.
Sorry?
Subtle instruction.
No, so subtle instruction. So I said, no, he says it's a compliment. He said, in the West, the people are very sensitive. And if say the women who are coming, if they feel as if, you don't want to be with them, you don't want to talk with them, you are looking down upon them, then they will not come at all. In fact, the first time in 2005, several of the senior brahmacharis from Radha Gopinath temple had come to America. So traditionally in India, when we give where the training we had got, now I have not found the basis for this in Prabhupada's books, but the idea is that you don't look at women. You look aside and talk with them. That was the training we had got. So then one of the senior devotees from Chowpatty, he was giving a class in America, and throughout the class he didn't look at the women at all. And then just the next day, one of the Matajis from there directly called Maharaj on phone. He says, he doesn't even treat us like a human being. Is this the training you are given? I never felt so dehumanized. So then Maharaj, he called that devotee and he said that, if you want to do in the West, you have to respect how the women over there feel. And he said, you need to be able to see them as Vaishnavis, not just as women. So the point I'm making is that cultural boundaries and cultural conceptions are different in different parts of the world. So I would say that the principle of boundaries is always there. There have to be some boundaries, but what exactly the boundaries will be, that will vary from situation to situation, person to person. We can't mandate boundaries, isn't it? So in one sense, it's more like we give devotees a compass. This is the path to Krishna. Now, compass gives a direction, but then some people can go on a very narrow path. Some people need a broader path. Some people need more leeway. So how much would it be? Well, one principle I would say is that Maharaj generally, if somebody needs some space, he'll give them space. But then, if a particular service requires a particular profile or a particular way of functioning, then Maharaj may say that it's best that you don't do this particular service. So that's also understandable. So if we are giving facilities to someone, then it's natural for us to expect certain things from them. But if people want their own space, then that's okay. We can give them that space. But then they may not necessarily need or they may not necessarily, we can't necessarily give them the same facilities. So that will vary from person to person. So those are two broad points I would say, that train devotees in individual responsibility, and then with respect to facilities, be reciprocal. How much time or facility or what we do is depending on how much they are reciprocating. Okay? Thank you. Anything else?
When we meet Maharaj, so then how are we supposed to interact, or what should we be checking? I am not interacting with Maharaj, but let's say there is an opportunity, then what were we supposed to ask, or how should we deal?
See, I don't think there's any one way to deal with him. It's depending on particular opportunity that we have. Generally, see, one of the things which Maharaj has tried to do is that prevent practical over-dependence on him. So in one sense, that even in Mumbai or other places where he is present, he has not centralized all decision making on himself. He has trained counselors, and counselors provide guidance. Now of course you can say the counselors cannot provide guidance as well as Maharaj can do. That's true. But then they are trained and they provide some guidance, and basically the needs are addressed. So I would say that generally when interacting with the spiritual master, tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya we say. So, are there some issues that are of deep concern for us that we want to ask about? That is pariprashnena. Sevaya is, we ask, I'm in this place, I'm in this position, how can I serve? Overall, Maharaj's mood, what I have seen is more of consolidation. Consolidation means that the projects that he has created, he wants to focus on building them now. For the eco-village, he has a huge vision. So devotees who are thinking of relocating to India, if you talk with Maharaj will welcome them to come to the eco-village. And now they're creating a big apartment and residential complex also for devotees to stay. So if you want to ask about a specific service, we can ask about a service, and then we can express our gratitude for that. So it's not that pranipad doesn't mean you just fall down and stay falling down all the time and Maharaj walks away from there. It's just we express our gratitude, our appreciation. We express our gratitude, our appreciation for what we have got. If we have some questions, we ask them, and then we ask about if there is a specific service we can do. Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So Prabhuji, you nicely highlighted the different ways of how we can work as disciples, right? But in the Western, for example, Toronto, people don't, disciples don't have the chance of actually meeting Maharaj or talking to him about their services or practical situations or that kind of bonding. There's no chance for that to happen, and so it becomes quite abstract for them to hear the lectures and figure out what the instruction is, and sometimes that interpretation may not even be the right way to think about the scenario. So what should people be doing in that kind of a scenario?
Well, it's not that just because somebody is in India, they have a lot of association with Maharaj. Yeah. In Mumbai also, if you go, thousands and thousands of devotees over there. And even the senior devotees don't get much time that way. So, the exact way in which, what is the exact role of the Guru in a disciple's life? So that itself is something which, at a philosophical level, there is a lot of discussion going on now. Because now, as the first generation Gurus are in their final stages, the next generation, how the succession is going to happen, how things are to move forward. So, one devotee has phrased the problem very sharply, you could say. Basically, the way it is, we tell devotees, you are no one without your Guru. And then we tell them, you are no one to be with your Guru. So, it's like catch-22 situation. Isn't it? but that's not how the tradition is meant to be. So it's a misconception that is created. If you see, in the tradition also, Advaita Acharya was initiated by Madhavendra Puri. He just had one meeting, and there's no incident that Madhavendra Puri was doing a follow-up with Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya was asking instructions. Even we talk about Mahaprabhu being initiated by Ishwar Puri, that's true. But then, how much is Mahaprabhu actually concerned Ishwar Puri? We say Mahaprabhu is God, that is true. But they just have two interactions, one in Mayapur, the other in Gaya, where they get initiation. Yes. Apart from that, they are not much initiation. How much interaction will Prabhupada have with his Guru Maharaj? Now, there is very little description that Prabhupada even discussed any practical problems with his Guru. Clearly, if you consider Prabhupada's life, he had a lot of practical issues. He had his business first in Kolkata, then he relocated to Mumbai, then he relocated to Prayag. These are three different parts of India. And I have friends who have studied Indian history. In the 1920s, 1930s, this kind of relocation was not common. They're like, you get one place and stay at one place. So Prabhupada was trying to build his business and expand his business. He located an entire family from one part of the country to the other extreme of the country. So there is no example, no description that Prabhupada consulted his Guru Maharaj. Should I do this? Should I do that? So that idea, that very vision, that there has to be constant consultation or even consultation for major decisions from the Guru. And that itself is a particular vision which may not necessarily be compatible with the way the Guru-disciple system has worked in the tradition. And that's why within our tradition we see, within our movement also, right now we'll see that there are different Gurus and they have their own ways of functioning. Now our reference point might be, okay, this particular spiritual master is here and they're available. And this spiritual master is available on email, this spiritual master is here like that. And that may be a reference point for comparison. And that's a fair enough reference point. But ultimately, our reference point has to be Shastra. So, the point is that we live in a devotee community. And in the devotee community, we learn. There may be different, there's one Shiksha Guru, one Diksha Guru, but we may have many Shiksha Gurus. And those Shiksha Gurus, we may have to find according to what gels with us. It's like, we say like-minded devotee association. So that also means like-minded. We also need like-minded guides. What do you mean by like-minded guides? As I mentioned, I am quite intellectual. So when I was introduced to Bhakti, the devotees who guided me initially, they answered my questions very rationally, objectively. But after 5-6 years, I started finding that I had questions and they didn't have the answers to those questions. And the more I was asking the questions, these devotees started labeling me as doubters. So, as doubters. One devotee I remember, our godbrother only, one senior devotee, he said, I asked some questions. He said, Chaitanya Charan, you should remember we are in Bhakti Marg, not Gyan Marg. So there are snide remarks like that. So I was at one time actually feeling very intellectually suffocated. So then I talked about this with Maharaj, and Maharaj said, there are these devotees, you should talk with them. So there were devotees who were in the academic world and in the Western world, academic world. Maharaj said, talk with them, you can be friends with them. And through that gradually I was introduced to a whole universe of devotees who are just as analytical, intellectual as I am, and who have lots of questions. And who have the same questions that I have, more questions than what I have. And still those questions have not in any way weakened their faith. The point is that we need to find like-minded association, and that means like-minded guides. So like-minded guides, basically I see it as three things. One is, we understand their mind. Say, when they give some classes, when they give some explanations, those make sense to us. Sometimes some devotees may explain things in such a way that, we ask a logical question and they give a scriptural answer. And then okay, that reference is fine, but how does it practically relate with my life, or how do I make sense of it in terms of what do I see in the world now? So first is, we understand their mind. Second is, they understand our mind. That means when we ask questions, they understand where we are coming from. Not that they judge us, oh, you're just being sentimental, you are being Sahaji-like, you are being this, oh, you are being too ritualistic, you are being karmakandi, this, that. There are so many labels that we put in. It says that it is sarvopadhi vinirmuktam, that's our philosophy. We have all upadhis, but we have an upadhi for everything. Now, all kind of behaviors we create upadhis for them, labels, we label them. So, but without labeling, they understand our mind. And the third is that they help us understand our mind. Okay, you are thinking in this way, and yeah, I understand why you're thinking like this, but here, this is where your thinking may be going wrong. You're not considering this factor. This is how your mind may be tricking you. So, it is our responsibility to find like-minded association, like-minded guides. And that's why we have, if you see, initiation is not just the connection with the Guru. Initiation is the connection with the tradition. So the tradition is like a university. So initiation is our formal entry into the university. But once we enter into the university, we get connected with all the teachers in the university. And we do need teachers, no doubt about that. But that teacher doesn't have to be our spiritual master alone. We can learn from different Shiksha Gurus and we can grow in our spiritual life. Thank you. The last question before we stop. Yes, sir.
Prabhuji, one follow-up question for this only. So, when this Shiksha Guru or our mentor is trying to help the mentee, so you are written the third point that they should help us read our mind, So in that process, if they label it as like this is our Guru, Maharaj will not like this thing, or he doesn't like this thing. How good or how bad or how is it like for the Maharajas this thing and like how is it harmful or good for the Maharaj reputation or like devotees upbringing in that process? Should him take it as like okay because his Maharaj doesn't like it, we should stop doing this?
My understanding would be that those who are well trained by Maharaj, they won't just leave it at that. Maharaj won't like this. No, saying Maharaj won't like this can very well be a tool for emotionally blackmailing people. That okay, it's not that I deliberately want to do something which Maharaj won't like. Okay, I am in a particular situation and these are the options for me. And you are saying these options Maharaj will not like, then how is the situation to be dealt with? That is important. I think just saying that Maharaj won't like this, that should not be, the answer should not remain at that level. That can definitely be spoken, no doubt. But then there is a practical underlying need which has to be addressed. And if that is not addressed, then it's going to create problems. So Maharaj, there are principles, but underlying the principles, so there are specifics, but underlying the specifics, there are principles. So I would say that there is always the need of a particular devotee that has to be addressed. If that is not addressed, it will become a serious problem. Does it address your question? Yes. So thank you very much. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Gaur Premanande. Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji. We have many more questions, but I think you need to go for the next program.